My name is Laure Estes, and I started at Shades Cahaba in '79 and retired in 2001.
Welcome to the Shades Cahaba Oral History Project. I'm your host, Sean Wright. Today's episode features former Shades Cahaba kindergarten teacher Laure Estes. Now, if you went to Shades Cahaba when she taught there, you would know her as Laura Matthews. I originally reached out to her about a connection I heard that she had to the owl that is on top of the school. She may or may not have had that owl as a neighbor. You're just going to have to tune into that episode when it airs. We had a great conversation about her time at the school and growing up in Homewood. I thought she should get her own episode of the Shades Cahaba Oral History Podcast.
I missed you completely. I was gone by 1973. What grade did you teach?
Kindergarten the whole time.
Really?
I taught 1 year at Hall Kent when I first started in Homewood. And I taught first grade, and they knew I wanted kindergarten. Right. So they had a position open the next year at Shades Cahaba and said, "Do you want it?" And, of course, I knew Lou Levon, who was my dad's friend, and so I jumped at it. So,
Lou, I've never heard him referred to as Lou.
Oh, Lewis?
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
That was my principal.
Oh, okay.
So
he was a great guy. He was there when I was there.
He really
for
was.
A while. Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how few principals have really gone through that place. He was probably just the fifth, and that'd been 70 years by that point. I've never asked any teacher this, but was there preferred schools? Did y'all want to be at like a certain school? Like I know all the parents want to be at certain schools.
Well, we always felt like Shades Cahaba was the best.
Right.
Now, UAB thought Hall Kent was the best.
Really?
Well, they sent a lot of their students over there. They did a lot of observations and kind of had their favorites that they wanted their students to go and observe.
Right.
But we thought Shades Cahaba was the best.
I'm always surprised when people have their favorite schools. Parents, I'm talking. Parents have their favorite schools. They want to. They think, "Oh, I'm going to Edgewood or I'm going to Shades Cahaba," and I'm like, if you can get into any of them, you're doing good. It's a great education.
Oh yeah, and the houses are very expensive.
Yeah.
So, of course, we used to sit out on the playground on the bench when the kids were playing and saying, "Well, you know, it's all because of the good teachers that are here."
Well, it is. I have a friend who feels that the school is really the keystone of this entire city. You know, we might have location and we might have nice houses and things like that, but it's the education, and if that falls apart,
right,
then everything goes under. Right. And my wife, who went to another unnamed school system, so when she got to college, she struggled. Whereas I went to Homewood and was not a good student of my own making, and I was able to make it through. I was more successful probably than I would have been if I'd gone to another school. So.
Well, I've always thought, and a lot of the teachers do too, that it's that individual teacher in that individual school that can make the difference.
Yeah.
Between a good experience, a strong learning environment, or not.
Right. I went to All Saints for first grade and did not have a good teacher. Even my mom admitted it later on that she just didn't like children.
Oh, dear.
But then the next year I started Shades Cahaba, and Mrs. Lemon was my first teacher.
Oh, yes, I knew Miss Lemon. She and my mom and dad were good friends at Trinity.
She was really great. She and I still have that memory of her driving down Oxmoor as she went home in her burgundy Mercedes-Benz.
She actually retired the year before I came to Shades Cahaba.
Okay. Her great-grandson is at the high school right now.
Oh, my goodness.
So the Lemons have been
She's
around for a while.
Person. Yeah.
Before we get into the owl, a little more about your kindergarten history. Do you have any memories of kindergarten at Shades Cahaba?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, my granddaughter just graduated from Auburn last December and is teaching kindergarten this year in Pleasant Grove, just starting. And I'm having a ball sharing everything. And she's just like a sponge, you know, tell me. So, but yeah, my mom had actually taught at Shades Cahaba in the early 50s. When I was about 5 years old, she taught PE. All of my experiences, you know, we had a wide variety of socioeconomic group children, and it was perfectly fine. Everybody loved each other. And the teachers, we really had an unusually close group. We'd party together. We'd share all of our good times and bad times. And there's still a group of us who once a month go to lunch together, retirees. So I think it's quite unusual. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like that. I've heard about Edgewood does that too, that there's this community of teachers that really, enjoy each other's company and want to commiserate, I guess.
Right. We saw our group saw a group from Edgewood sitting over at another table at the Ross Bridge Golf Restaurant one day, and we went over there and we said, "In retirement, wonderful." Yeah,
I'm to that age now where I've got friends who are retiring, especially friends who are school teachers who are retiring, and I'm like, what? You're way too young to retire.
I don't know.
So why kindergarten? Was there?
Well, I had taught at a church. I majored in early childhood education at Auburn. And so I always, and then for a while I was in home ec, but I always wanted, and at that time you had to major in home ec in order to do early childhood. Wow. But then it changed, and kindergartens began to be public school. And so that's when I stayed home for 10 years with my children when they were little, and then went back to work at Homewood. I don't know, I just thought it was much more fun. We could sing and dance and play and do all the fun things and not have to worry so much about the academics, except we did a lot with those kids. They were just like little sponges.
Right. And kindergarten is now first grade.
Nah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah,
that's what I've heard.
I mean, in a good way. I mean, they still have fun and do all that, but it's...
Well, my friend Tricia Simpson, who taught kindergarten with me for years at Shades Cahaba, became the principal at Edgewood for several years. She's now retired. But I saw her at a gathering, a lunch gathering one time, and I said, "Well, how is it?" And she said, "Oh, kindergarten's so much different than it used to be." I said, "Oh, no, they still have blocks, don't they?" And she said, "Well, yeah, but..." And then she just let it trail off. So I just don't even want to know.
So you taught there, your mother taught there. Is there going to be the third generation going to teach there, do you think?
Well, I hope. Actually, my daughter taught kindergarten at Hall Kent for several years before she started having her children. So, and now my granddaughter, we talked to Betty Winches and took my granddaughter over there, and they needed somebody with experience in the position they had open. Right. So she didn't get that, but, she's going to, in fact, she loves her principal at Pleasant Grove, but I think eventually she'd like to. I mean, just like I told Betty, I said, "Oh my goodness, it's the best school system in the state. So where else would we want her to be?" But
so when your mom taught there, what was her name?
Kernie Ardillo.
When she taught there, she taught PE, was the gym built at that time?
I'm not sure, but what she remembered the most was that's when they were widening 31. There was no air conditioning in the school, and her room was actually the room that I ended up teaching kindergarten, right across from Piggly Wiggly.
Okay.
And so she said they had the windows open and the dirt was flying from all the construction that was going on. And she had parents that would bring in fans for them because it was so terribly hot. But
now, was that classroom there on the end? So that was my fifth grade classroom.
Okay.
Mrs. Geis. I had.
I know Carolyn Geis.
I had that one on the end, and my memories, we did not have air conditioning either. And this would have been, what did I tell you, 73. What was going on was we would sell Halloween candy that the PTO would do, and we would sell that, and then they would go and they would put window air conditioning units.
Oh, okay.
They were always the class behind me. They always had those in them. But I do remember the radiators.
Oh, yes.
And the and the window air conditioning units. But since they've updated, it's been to my advantage because now I have stories to tell my children about how awful it was. How we didn't have air conditioning. Right. We had to walk through the snow.
Well, when I first started at Shades Cahaba, I was on the complete opposite end of the school, right above the parking lot. And yes, the radiators, I would put the kids down for nap every day around 12:30. And evidently, for some reason, that's when the pipes would start popping. Banging. And the only way we controlled the heat in the room was to open and close the windows because it could be too hot, too cold, so I was always opening and closing windows. But yeah, as soon as I put them down for nap.
Was this on that far wing that's over there? So, which is... forget what it is now, but
Yeah, I don't know.
when it was a high school, I'm thinking that was the elementary wing, the top and the bottom of
Oh,
that.
okay.
They
Okay.
kept the kids separated from what people tell me. Yeah, I'm curious about the gym. When I was talking to Herb, he was telling me that they didn't have the gym, obviously, in 48 and before that, but he was talking about having a homecoming dance. I was like, well, where did you do the homecoming dance? He was like, oh, out on the street.
Oh, probably.
You know, we didn't have a gym. I
Uh-huh,
thought, it's awful.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know exactly when it was built. I know my mother was there when I was 5 and 6 years old. Then we moved to Gadsden, so after that.
Okay,
So.
all right. So your father, his connection with Shades Cahaba is?
Well, he was on the board for 15 years and eventually was the president of the board. He also loved to be involved in all the construction and the reconstruction, and so he was very instrumental in making sure the buildings were what they needed to be for the children. And of course, I was there during the $3 million renovation. Reconstruction, whatever you call it. Well, for a full year at least, you could walk down the hall and there was sheetrock dust everywhere. We were all getting sinus infections, and in fact, my doctor saw me so many times, he said, wear a mask. So when I'd take the kids to lunch or whatever, I put this mask on, everybody was laughing at me, but it was wonderful when they got through. Just, in fact, I got to be on the committee that told the board what kinds of things we wanted. In the new building.
So what were some of the top of the list?
Well, in kindergarten, we wanted a bathroom between the two classrooms. That was number one. We didn't want concrete block walls. We wanted,
like the high school has the concrete block walls.
We didn't want that. We wanted Pella windows. We went for the best.
So that they would just open?
Well,
easily?
so that the blinds were in the middle of the two panes.
Right, yeah.
Because we were constantly, especially nap time, we wanted to pull those blinds down. So we got it. Whatever we asked for. Mr. Bumpus was the superintendent at the time, and whatever we asked for, we got. And I remember requesting that for kindergarten, we wanted to tile in front of the sink for our art table. And that only made sense. Well, Tricia Simpson and I walked into the rooms as they were building them, and we saw they were going to run the carpet all the way over to the sink. And we called the board and said, no. He said, you go in there and chalk off what you want, and that's what they'll do.
I can see it right now. I can see those sinks with the tile. Just so everybody realizes what Shades Cahaba was, people my age and older are having a hard time visualizing what it looks like now. But in the old days, I always tell people it's like a big U with the auditorium right in the middle. And if you were walking around that U, the hallway of this U, the inside part of the U was all windows, and you could see a big courtyard.
Right.
And you could see the back of the auditorium that was sticking out there. And then on one end of the U was, they built some years before a building, and I think the band was back there.
And the scouts would meet there in the afternoon. Okay. This was really before my time.
Yeah.
But then there were outdoor cement steps that led down to the cafeteria from the outside, and also steps from when it was downstairs with the pipes above your head.
And you can actually see that now. That you can see they still use the stairs coming down, because that area now is extended day program EDP.
Right.
And you can kind of see where those stairs were from the courtyard. It's kind of a little nook that they put a cot in there when the kids get sick. What they did was they filled in that entire courtyard. So now you've got some additional rooms on the inside of that U that I mentioned. There's a new library, which was 2 or 3 of the classrooms were put together down the hall. Then you have an office and you have a lunchroom, and they filled all that in, and it throws everybody off. And somebody asked me the other day, they said, do the floors still squeak? And I tell them, yes, they still squeak. They're all carpeted now.
Right.
And you remember, they used to have stairs. You'd go up and down these sets of stairs.
Oh, yes.
Well, they're all ramps now.
Right.
I guess they were there after that. And they're all carpeted, but all the squeaks have been preserved all the way through the school. What's nice is that there's still so much of it that looks like it did.
Right, the auditorium.
The auditorium. That probably doesn't have a long life. I know they were trying to put in classrooms there.
Oh, really? Well, they've always had a water problem there. Even after the renovation, the crumbling, the inside of the plaster, I guess, would crumble.
Yeah, kind of bubble up. And that is true.
But we used it. We used the stage and had a mock circus in there with the kindergartners one time. So
the funny thing is they can't get all the school in there, so they have to still go to the gym. But the gym looks almost exactly like when I was there, which is really nice. I can visualize running around in there as a child.
Right,
So
right.
they made little changes, but I'm fine with that. It
it has a stage too.
Right. At least they've got air conditioning and stuff that I didn't have. And your dad was instrumental, wasn't he, on that construction of the inside? I know his name's on the wall outside.
Right, right.
As being part of that group.
Well, he and Mr. Bumpus were good buddies, and I think Mr. Bumpus had a vision, but my dad kind of helped follow through with all of it. Well, I do remember that when it came time to buy the furniture for the new teacher's lounge after the renovation, my dad said, "You get you a group together and y'all just go pick out something, and I will forfeit I think it was $300 a month to be on the board." And he said they can just take my money out until y'all get that furniture paid for or whatever. And he didn't want any smoking in the teacher's lounge, and the other teacher's lounge was terrible. But
I was about to ask about the smoking.
we actually got a little no smoking sign, and that was, whenever the renovation was, 81?
Or was it later?
Or 82 maybe?
Was
83?
it like 89 or 90?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I got to figure that one out.
But, we didn't. Well, and it was right next to the office, and we had parents walking. It was like a walkthrough from the office back to the copy machine to the media center. So it, wouldn't have been a good idea.
Have images of the junior high school teachers lounge and the door opening up there and thinking. See, that was when I was a student. You mentioned at the beginning of this about the teachers, y'all go out and you'll go out and party and stuff, and. I'm 56 years old, but in my mind, I'm like, no, teachers don't do that. They don't go out and socialize and be human beings. They just,
Oh, I remember a child one time saw me in Piggly Wiggly. He was with his mother, and at the time I was Miss Matthews. Miss Matthews, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I have to grocery shop too. So I actually found a little book to read to my kindergartners that was Miss Smith Lives at School. Because the children thought I lived at school. Right. So it was a really cute book. They said, well, if you think she lives at school, where does she sleep? Well, she has got a blanket in her closet, and she puts it under her desk, and they had all these explanations in the book about why a teacher would live at school. So, but yeah.
And I thought it was odd because in my mind, teachers are old. They're these really old. They're like 90 years old. And I guess the teachers looked younger, but when I got to fourth grade, I had Miss Thompson, and in fifth grade, I had Ms. Geis and Jean Reed Woodward. Yeah, I had all these young teachers, and it was really, it was kind of odd. But the nice thing about it,
you'd had Miss Lemon, who was older. Yeah,
but I wonder if Miss Lemon was probably a lot younger than I imagined.
Yeah, well, she had that beautiful white hair, so probably for years and years.
I still envision her. She's, Jessica Tandy in Driving Miss Daisy.
Yes, absolutely.
That is my image in my head. So yeah, it's weird to have these teachers, who now are just a little bit older than I am. We're practically the same generation. Right. Well, I appreciate you talking to me.
You're welcome.
I hope this was painless.
Absolutely. I have nothing but good memories, so.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks again to Laure Estes for taking the time out of her day to talk to me about Shades Cahaba. I left just in time so she could get to lunch with her retired teacher friends. Man, they are a social bunch. The Shades Cahaba Oral History Project is sponsored by SeanWrightArt.com. Yep, that's me. When you go there, look for the link to Shades Cahaba, and you'll find shirts and accessories featuring the exclusive Shades Cahaba Centennial logo. This logo is based on an image on the cover of the OWL yearbook back in the 1920s. It's been updated to celebrate the 100 years of the school, and it helps us to offset the cost of producing and publishing this podcast. You can also find a link to the store on the podcast homepage at shadescahabahistory.com. If you loved listening to this podcast, please leave us a review at Apple Podcast and tell your friends about the show.